about next fiscal year. And so that's the next concern.
God bless you, ma'am.
And, you know,
Good day.
Well, good afternoon. I am Sidney Katz, the immediate past president of the Montgomery County Council. And for those of you who are wondering about the immediate, on Tuesday, we were, the Montgomery County Council elected, and I congratulate Council President Tom Hucker and Vice President Gabe Albornoz. And I know both of those gentlemen will do a marvelous job as the president and as the vice president. But I'm the District 3 County Council representative, and I am delighted that we are being joined here today, and everyone else is joining us on Zoom for our 15th business briefing. The purpose of these briefings, has been to help local businesses and nonprofits navigate through our new economic reality. And I'm very happy today to welcome James Chung, who's the president of Reach Advisors, to today's business briefing. Mr. Chung has a wealth of experience, and you're going to find that out in 2 seconds here. And he will share his ideas related to the county's economic recovery from the impacts of COVID-19 and to fulfilling our immense economic potential for the benefit of all of the 1.1 million residents. We will then take questions from our Zoom audience. Please send your questions to the chat box on the right of the screen. I also wanted to thank Laurie Edberg from my office, who gets these briefings together for us, which is not an easy task, and she does a wonderful job on that. And I, of course, always want to thank Susan Kennedy, who moderates these briefings. She always does a wonderful job as well. And with that, Susan, please let us begin.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Katz. And that's going to be difficult for me to get used to, too. I've called you Mr. President for so long, but congratulations on a very successful year. And you navigated the council through a very difficult time and did a wonderful job. Thank you very much. And we have James Chung with us today. Mr. Chung, thank you so much. You're coming to us from Northern New York, we understand. Talk a little bit about Reach Advisors and how you got connected with Montgomery County. And I know you have a little bit of a presentation you'd like to share with us as well to start us off.
Susan, thank you. We were brought in at the start of the year by the Montgomery County Business Roundtable and the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation to take a look at what is the future of Montgomery County, what have been the challenges, and what are the potentials to break through. And we were brought into this because we did something, an abbreviated version of this for Frederick County maybe about 5 years ago or so. And so there were some people involved in that with the Montgomery County Business Roundtable who thought that it was the right time to take a look at these issues for Montgomery County as well too. And as we dived into this issue, we realized it was probably pretty wise timing because Montgomery County is this very interesting decision point about where it's heading in the future, sort of a fork in the road, basically.
And talk a little bit about some of those findings. I know you've got some branding ideas. You've got some ideas on how our job growth has progressed over the past few years. We look at the jobs in the county. We have a lot of small businesses. Our job growth has mostly been in the area of lower paying jobs, not the higher paying jobs. Can you walk us through a little bit of what you have found in your research about Montgomery County?
Okay, let's think about the best way to do this. That was a 2-hour presentation a couple weeks ago, but
means you're going to have to speak fast. That means that's all.
Maybe what I'll try to do is I try to reduce some of the slides, and maybe what I'll do is maybe do 10 minutes, try 10 minutes of highlights, and then leave time for some questions after that.
Perfect.
So let me do the share screen here and go to desktop 2, and let's see if you're able to. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to do, okay, hold on a second. Let's see if I can add this. And for some reason, it is not letting me. So with that, why don't I talk through these issues as plan B? Okay, so you won't be seeing the visuals, but I think we can get the message across here. And it was interesting when brought in because Montgomery County is a powerhouse. We didn't recognize this until we started, but Montgomery County's economy is bigger than 13 states in the US. And it's not just because it's a bigger county, it's because there's such high productivity in this economic productivity in this county. And it's a 99th percentile county on so many measures, or more accurately, like 99.5. It's one of the best counties in the US by many measures. But I can see why they were getting sort of really concerned about it, because when we looked at it, Montgomery County had a fantastic run up in the 80s and 1990s when we looked at it. Basically, there was massive infrastructure improvement, red line, 270, 370. The NIH budget really skyrocketed in the 1990s. And with that, it became the suburban community of choice for DC. It was where you wanted to be. But starting after about mid-2000s, Montgomery County just flatlined for about 15 years. In part, the NIH budget had dropped. In part, what we thought was really odd is that after the last recession, at the end of the 2000s, around 2009, Montgomery County did not recover anywhere near like the rest of the U.S. Household income grew much less than the rest of the U.S. It grew much less than the rest of the DMV. One of the things that really concerned us is younger adults, age 25 to 44, there's basically almost no growth of the backbone of the workforce, and it's not attracting the same level of income and education of those young adults. Basically, what's happening is the job growth in Montgomery County has been in lower paying jobs. The job loss has been higher paying jobs. So basically not what you want to see happen. So I can see why there was concern. Then we looked at business formation, and basically across the US, there's almost always one net new business added for every 21 new residents or whatever. And Montgomery County kept growing, but business formation absolutely just flatlined since the last recession versus the rest of the US. It recovered. It's not just versus the US versus the DMV. It slowed down. And so there were concerns. And when we looked at it, we dug into a couple structural drivers behind it. And one is a concept that we call traded clusters versus local clusters. Traded clusters are related industries that primarily serve markets beyond the region. In other words, they export their product. And the high-paid jobs of that company are at headquarters locally, and they're free to choose a location, but typically concentrated in a few regions that have very specific advantages. And then there are local clusters, which are industries that primarily serve the local market. They're both needed for a healthy and prosperous regional economy. But the reason why we wanted to focus on that differentiation is most businesses are local cluster businesses, but and Montgomery County is sort of on average in terms of distribution for the rest of the U.S. But the rest of the DMV and for most stronger cities have a much higher ratio of traded cluster businesses. They're the ones that generate higher wages, higher wage growth, higher job growth, more regional GDP growth. And Montgomery County does not have, for a powerhouse county, it actually has a very low percentage of those traded cluster businesses. There's another structural thing that we also flagged too, and this starts to get a little bit more complex based off the work of our data science firm, is that we can deconstruct local market economies by a concept called alpha and beta, which are borrowed concepts from Wall Street. Alpha is the level of structural growth that's beyond normal cyclical. Basically, where is there growth that's abnormally strong on a risk-adjusted, cyclically adjusted basis? And there's beta, which is how variable is it to, how sensitive is it to the U.S. economy, shifts in the U.S. economy. And what we found is Montgomery County is very modest alpha. It outperforms the U.S. by just a little bit, and the reason why is life sciences. But the problem is life sciences usually injects a ton of alpha into an economy. Montgomery County is a ton of alpha, or a ton of life sciences, but it doesn't get much alpha driving it. It just doesn't get the same kind of juice that Boston or Raleigh-Durham or San Diego get from the life sciences. Then regarding beta, the good news is it's low beta. It's much less cyclical than the rest of the US because the federal dominance creates stability in downturns. But we also notice that the federal dominance has been, in a way, constraining growth during economic expansion because it's not an economy geared up for growth like that. So if Montgomery County wants to outperform again and just bring in more quality jobs, job growth, wage growth, the outperformance will be driven by growing more traded cluster businesses and unlocking hidden alpha, which is a concept that our clients that use the data science serve look for. Where can they find outsized growth for? So in other words, it's like, instead of just adding bodies, how are they adding like more talented, higher productive, higher educated audience. And the good news behind this is that Montgomery County does have a couple of pockets of very significant assets already in place to grow alpha and traded cluster businesses, but it just hasn't fully capitalized on it yet. Number one of those areas is the hospitality industry. When we looked at it, it was amazing. When we looked at basically the market capitalization for the hospitality industry in the US, more than 50% of the US market cap is headquartered in Montgomery County between Marriott, Choice Hotels, and then between the REITs here. More than 50% of the hotel real estate investment trusts are based in Montgomery County. So it's a powerhouse. And then you have others in the hospitality ecosystem. You have the hotel operators in Montgomery County. You have, the food services companies, where the international companies, where the U.S. headquarters in Montgomery County. So there's a lot here. And you have a couple of hospitality tech companies that are moving in, they're here as well too, which they should be because their biggest customers are here. Their best labor pool is here. But, so one of the things we're thinking about is what opportunities do we have to generate even higher value from this unique agglomeration of industry talent? There are very few counties in America where more than half of the industry is headquartered there. It's an extremely rare thing. But as we think about it, if Montgomery County doesn't do anything, the industry is in reinvention now because of the pandemic and COVID. It's going to last for a long, we're hoping the pandemic doesn't last for long, but the reinvention is in gear. So Montgomery County, in a way, has the most to lose in terms of jobs lost, headquarters, staff moving away. But it also has the right to win, which is the concept we're big on, is what do you have the reason to win in leading the reinvention of the hospitality industry? And a lot of that reinvention is going to inevitably involve technology innovation because they're figuring out how can they still deliver the service with lower staff that's going to be technologically added. And Montgomery County, technology has not been a strength of Montgomery County, but Montgomery County has the right to win in tech where it already has an unfair advantage. And one of it is that agglomeration of the hospitality industry. So we would like to see the overall hospitality industry reinvention happen in Montgomery County because the headquarters are here. They're going to be driving a lot of it. They're going to be looking for solutions. But what we'd like to see is a lot more of these high growth hospitality tech companies domicile here. Basically, there are a lot of staff who are furloughed, who aren't going to go back to headquarters jobs. And there are a lot of people in the industry also in the same situation who should come to Montgomery County because they're the ones, who have the skills and the customers are here. So we think that there's a big cluster of tech businesses to grow around there because Montgomery County does not have its share yet, but it has all the other reasons Montgomery County should win on that. Now, there's another big area for growing alpha and trade and cluster businesses, and that's the life sciences industry. Montgomery County is generally viewed as, or actually, I step back. The Washington, D.C. metro area is generally viewed as, it's not Boston and San Francisco when it comes to life sciences, but it's in that next tier with another half dozen cities. But then we map where all those companies are. Those life sciences companies in Washington, D.C., basically, it's I-270 in Montgomery County. It's not the D.C. metro area. 90% of that is Montgomery County. But the problem is, despite the fact that it's one of the 10 leading cities, it has the lowest venture capital flow of any of those cities. And so that's one of the things that just does not, that's why it's not generating the alpha. It's not generating that dynamic growth that happens in the job growth and the wage growth that happens when you have that powerhouse in industry. So we try to figure out what are the unique strengths in Montgomery County. So, other than having the world's largest biomedical research center, GS Square in Montgomery County, what are other unique strengths? And so we started this project before. Basically, we came in February, and then the project shut down in March for obvious reasons. But since we were then just analysts on computers rather than on the ground, we did something interesting. We mapped, basically the World Health Organization was tracking every company and every institution in the world that was trying to develop some kind of COVID vaccine or COVID therapeutic. And so we were able to map and see where the hotspots were across the world. There was Japan, China, England, and then in the US, there was a hotspot in the US. Then we drilled down on the map. When we drilled down further and further, it was really interesting, and I wish I could show this map. The world's highest concentration of activity around COVID vaccines and therapeutics is I-270 in Montgomery County. It was amazing. And so one of the recommendations we have is flat out declare Montgomery County as the advanced immunology capital of the world. to be able to help support the acceleration of talent flow, new business formation, and capital flow. Because look, we're hoping COVID comes and goes, but we now know that these issues are going to be here with us in different forms. What Montgomery County has in spades is what the world is going to demand and need more of. So we might as well let the world know it's here and get more of that talent. And the businesses, like, I want Montgomery County to be like the U.S. headquarters for all the international companies that are in advanced immunology, stuff like that. Yeah, I want the top scientists to think, I got my job offers in Boston, San Francisco, but the more interesting stuff has happened in immunology is happening in Montgomery County. That's what I want to see happen. So that was another area in terms of driving alpha and more traded cluster businesses. But there's one more thing I'm going to put on the table in the remaining 2 minutes, and that is, I'm going to just put a question out there: how boldly can Montgomery County shape the future? And basically, as we think about the 2030s, every decade there's a major change in technology that changes everything. In the 40s, it was the vacuum tubes that built the computers that the U.S. Army used. 50s transistors, 60s integrated circuits, the 1970s microprocessors, which in the 1980s created personal computers, 1990s that enabled internet, in the last 13 years mobile. But what's going to happen in 2020, 2030s? We think we already see the signs of what's going to be the fundamental change. It's the quantum computing future. Now, this is sort of hard to understand. I'll step back and define quantum computing. It draws on that weird world of quantum mechanics, the physics of subatomic particles, the things that brought us MRIs and microwaves. But when it comes to computing is basically translating everything into zeros and ones and controlling switches in our computers. But in the quantum world, there's this concept of superposition where it's no longer zeros and ones, it's exponential states. So you can encode and process data in exponentially more states than zero ones. So you can do things like amazing thing. It's going to change everything, just like the internet, just like mobile did. But it basically, we're going to see the early signs of this in 2020s. It's going to change the world in the 2030s. We're going to think of quantum like we think of internet today or mobile today. But why are we mentioning this? Because Montgomery County has never been a technological leader. But here's why we put it on the radar screen. Reason number one, most of the current funding and direction for the quantum world is coming out of the federal agencies, including NIST, the Department of Energy's Advanced AI Technology Office, DARPA, and IARPA, which is the Intelligence Advanced Research Project Administration in Montgomery County, as is NIST. So the leadership, the forward vision, those are things that decisions happening here in Montgomery County now. And reason number two is that when we think about where the hard science research is being done, once again, we mapped it across the world, and then we found something really weird. We weren't expecting that the highest concentration of the advanced R&D is happening just across the county border, 2-3 miles away at UMD. It's pretty ridiculous. UMD has more going on this than Harvard and MIT combined, more than Stanford and Berkeley combined. So the hard stuff is happening right around the corner. One more reason is the lowest hanging fruit for the earliest value creation is cryptography and cybersecurity, which is why it makes sense for a lot of this to happen, because Montgomery County is at the epicenter. And then drug discovery is the other low hanging fruit. And here's the other thing I wish I could map, is that basically between NIST running down I-70, IARPA, NIH, FDA, UMD, and then up to Fort Meade, it's effectively a 50-mile crescent, which we believe can become as valuable as the 50 miles between San Francisco and San Jose. Now, we have a head start on a couple pieces. One is the governmental drivers are either in Montgomery County or just across the border, between, DOD, what's happening in DC, Department of Energy. Second, huge head start in academic R&D. It's 3 miles across the border. Third, Montgomery County is the epicenter for a large portion of future demand because life sciences is where the action is going to happen big time. And that, as we think about it, can create the platforms to attract the remaining key pieces: workforce and business leadership, venture capital and corporate investment. It's another area where I'd like to see a lot more companies, like international companies, putting their headquarters in Montgomery County in the quantum world. and attract that kind of talent. So Montgomery County absolutely has the right to win in the quantum computing future. And I know it sounds like, Star Trek-ish, but 90% odds this is going to change everything and redefine our economy and our lives. And so Montgomery County has the right to win in quantum computing future if it has the guts to go for it. And that's what I'm going to try to push. And I'm going to be sticking with Montgomery County to just be available and sort of push to think about how does Montgomery not let this opportunity pass away from us. But
let me ask you, Mr. Chung, let me just jump in there for just a second. And this is all incredible information. And we know these things about Montgomery County. So what do you suggest? How do we jump on this and market this and rebrand ourselves so people understand that we have all of this to offer here?
Yeah, so this is a really good question, because as I tell my clients, your brand is not what you say about yourself, it's what others say about you. And so how do we start to make it clear that that is the case? Now, in terms of branding, like, for example, the advanced immunological capital of the world, right now it's sort of hard to bring all those companies together because they're racing to get vaccines and therapeutics out the door. But I think that there are wonderful stories to be told that can be made much more visible in the media and in industry about this. I think that, and I get the sense that Montgomery County Economic Development is totally tuned into this idea of let's go get international companies to headquarter U.S. operations in the U.S. If they are in advanced immunology and or if they are in quantum. I think that this has provided sort of impetus for a lot of the quantum leaders to think about, okay, how do we end up really putting this together? I understand that there have been some of the federal elected leaders who have now heard about this and are now have asked for meetings like this to start to think about what can happen from a legislative and federal side that can help advance this. Because the hospitality industry happened because there were very interesting legislative things and that happened that made Montgomery County super attractive for those companies. So let's see if we can do that in the other categories as well too. So a whole range of things that have to come together, but I think that the parties are really starting to tune into this and accelerating. I'm certainly getting a lot of input and feedback and people moving things forward. And I think so. I think it's the perfect time to do it. And I think that it's the opportunity's there. And so I think both from just branding as well as the doing part of it, the heavy lifting part of it, I see a lot of signs those things are in motion.
When they invented the word wow, James, I think they were talking about you. The information that you have given, I understand it's a 2-hour lecture, and I, believe me, would sit through all 2 hours of it. But it's just amazing. Let me ask you, and I'm going to have to go back now and do some of my research on traded clusters and local clusters, but now, are the traded clusters and the local clusters, I guess, but do they involve more than for-profit businesses, or is the government a traded cluster? Or nonprofits? How does that work?
Yeah, this is sort of a good question. Let's take NIH, for example. 80% of the budget is extramural. In other words, grants that they're sending out to research hospitals and universities and stuff like that. 20% is intramural, spending that's happening here. But I would consider them sort of a traded cluster entity. I think it's a really good example of what happens within the walls of NIH impacts the rest of the nation and the world in very profound ways. So I would absolutely characterize that. But because NIH is in Montgomery County, I think there's so many more things that with NIH, FDA in Montgomery County, there's so much more activity that can happen around that can be to the benefit of Montgomery County and spawn even more of these traded cluster businesses. So there's a reason that those should be in Montgomery County, because the massive traded cluster institution is here, but there are many more things that can be leveraged to accelerate that even further and deeper.
James, let me ask you about what you were talking about earlier about the hospitality industry and making it growing the IT part of it, the IT technology part of that. Can you describe that a little bit more for us who don't understand exactly? We're thinking of, brick and mortar, Marriott, host hotels, choice hotels, where those folks go into work. We know a lot of those folks have been laid off at this time. There's been salaries that have been cut. How do these people come back through IT?
So here's the thing is that, so these companies, here's the challenge that we have is that we hope the pandemic is something that's going to be in a rear view mirror, hopefully some point next year. And that those companies, like, I'll tell you, when it's all clear, I'm going to be a happy road warrior again. And so those companies will be fine, but they've learned to live lean. They're not going to bring back every last one of those people. And they've realized that they can reinvent, they need to reinvent everything. And a lot of that reinvention is happening in tech. I want more of those tech people in the industry to be in Montgomery County, who might have been in other entities, because the ultimate customers for those advancements are here or just across the border at Hilton, in Tyson. So there's a reason those companies should be here in much greater numbers. But the tech people are only maybe a quarter or 30% of those companies. 70% are other people with knowledge of the industry as well too. So there'll be a lot of jobs grown for the non-tech people as well too in that category, and there will be more jobs growing in the tech side of that than sort of the headquarters jobs. And Montgomery County, oddly, given the extreme dominance, just does not have that many tech businesses or hospitality tech businesses compared to the few other cities where we've seen that kind of dominance. They have a ton of tech companies that have grown up around that industry and that raise a lot of capital and build big businesses. Montgomery County hasn't had that yet, but it's an incredible opportunity for Montgomery County.
Now, are the tech companies, are they in the United States, or many of them international? How does that work?
Yeah, so the good news is the U.S. is still a tech powerhouse, and the major headquarters companies are in the U.S. and in Montgomery County, or within 5 miles of Montgomery County. So I don't see any reason there could be thousands of jobs created in hospitality tech over the next 5 years in Montgomery County. High-paying jobs that leverage the years or decades of experience of a lot of staff, in Montgomery County. So that's just one opportunity. And part of the reason why I want to see Montgomery County build the muscle of building tech companies is the quantum future is around the corner. Once again, only 30% of those jobs are going to be quantum scientists. 70% are going to be people who can build growing companies.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So if you could change one thing right now about how we do things here in Montgomery County, what would that be?
Oh,
it's a loaded question.
You have a whole 2 minutes to answer it, so it's certainly going to be easy for you.
One of the things we noticed when we walked in, we've never walked into a community that has done more analysis and smart thinking about themselves than any others. This is a policy town. I mean, what we would like to see change and what we're trying to put on the table is it has a remarkable set of assets that are not fully brought to the highest and best potential yet. It is gifted with incredible assets that no one else in the U.S. or the world has. And the world is moving in the direction of what those assets can do and what they can be. And it's Montgomery's time to decide we're doing it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And obviously with the vaccines, you mentioned this right now. I mean, the idea of branding us as an immunological headquarters, we have several companies that are involved, Novavax, Emergent Biosciences, they're being developed and manufactured here in Maryland. That's huge. That is something that we really need to take advantage of.
Yeah, and then I should say, just like advanced immunology covers a lot of things, not just the vaccines, but Montgomery County has those strengths in spades. And look, let's face it, it's a growth business for the, for the next decade or for the rest of humanity, so we might as well be the center of it.
Well, Mr. Chun, it has been a very very informative 30 minutes. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Katz to close us out. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all your knowledge with us.
Oh,
Thank
this was
you.
fun.
You know, James, we always say that this is the fastest 30 minutes that you're going to involve. This was the fastest 30 minutes, I think, since we've had any of these briefings. You really are just a remarkable person. You have remarkable knowledge, and Montgomery County needs to listen to you. And what I sincerely appreciated was that you told us the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's what we have. We have all of that, and we're going to have to change to get back to all the good and work on what other areas we need to work on. But James Chung, President of Reach Advisors, I sincerely appreciated you being here, and I know that we will be in touch. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Great, thanks. This has been fun. I look forward to more with you guys.
Yes,
Please,
definitely.
please.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chung.
Right.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Has been passed as Councilmember Sidney Katz turns over the reins to Council Vice President Tom Hucker.
How does it feel?
Fine.
To lead the council for the coming year.
And that is unanimous. Congratulations. And Tom, we all look forward to working with you very, very soon as council president.
This council believes in a shared ideal